How often have you heard about the Battle of Gettysburg, touted as the turning point in the American Civil War? Let's delve into the historical context of this monumental event. As we rewind the clock back to the mid-19th century, the United States of America was in the throes of a brutal civil war that began in 1861. The conflict was fierce and bloody, tearing the nation apart at its very seams. This was a time of upheaval and turmoil, as the country grappled with the deep-seated issues of states' rights and slavery. The conflict pitted brother against brother, North against South. On one side stood the Union, the northern states fighting to preserve the nation and end slavery. On the other side, the Confederate States of America, a breakaway faction of southern states fighting for their independence and their perceived rights to maintain their way of life. 2 years into the war, the Confederate Army, led by the audacious General Robert E. Lee, was making bold incursions into Union territory. Lee's strategy was audacious, aimed at demoralizing the North and forcing a quick end to the war. His target? The small but strategically located town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Gettysburg was a crossroads, a hub of several important roads that made it a desirable objective for both armies. It was here, in this sleepy town nestled in the rolling hills of Pennsylvania, that the course of American history was irrevocably altered. The town became the stage for one of the most significant battles in American history, a brutal confrontation that would rage for 3 long bloody days in July of 1863. This battle was more than just a military confrontation. It was a pivotal moment that would determine the future of a nation. It was a test of ideals, of resolve, and of the very principles upon which the United States was founded. As we delve into the events of those fateful 3 days in July 1863, remember that the outcome of this battle changed the trajectory of the American Civil War. It's July 1st, 1863. The sun is rising over Gettysburg. As dawn broke, the quiet was shattered by the thunder of cannons. The first day of battle was upon us, and the air was thick with tension and anticipation. This was the moment both sides had been preparing for. The Confederate forces, led by General Robert E. Lee, and the Union forces, under the command of Major General John Buford. Buford had strategically positioned his cavalry west of the town, anticipating the Confederate advance. However, the Confederate forces were stronger than expected. In a fierce and relentless assault, they pushed the Union fighters back through the town, overpowering them with sheer numbers and strategic superiority. The streets of Gettysburg erupted into chaos as the battle raged on. The air filled with the deafening roar of gunfire, the cries of the wounded, and the harsh commands of officers. Amid the smoke and confusion, the Confederates pressed their advantage, driving the Union forces further back. Despite the ferocity of the Confederate attack, the Union forces were not easily cowed. They fought back with determination and courage, holding their lines as best they could. But by the end of the day, the Confederates had gained a significant advantage. They had pushed the Union forces back and secured key positions in and around the town. However, the Union forces were far from defeated. They had suffered losses, yes, but they were not broken. They still had fight left in them, and they were prepared to use it. The first day of battle may have ended in the Confederates' favor, but the Union forces would not go down without a fight. Under the cover of darkness, they regrouped and planned their strategy for the next day. They knew the battle was far from over. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new dangers. But for now, they would rest, heal, and prepare. As the sun set on the first day, the Confederates held the upper hand, but the Union forces were far from defeated. The dawn of the second day brought renewed fighting, with both sides determined to claim victory. As the sun rose on July 2nd, the Union forces, under the command of General George G. Meade, had established a formidable defensive position on Cemetery Hill. The Confederates, led by General Robert E. Lee, were not deterred. They knew the stakes and were prepared to make a concerted effort to crush their adversaries. The day's conflict began with a savage struggle at a place known as Devil's Den. Here, the Confederate forces, led by General John Bell Hood, launched a ferocious attack on the Union left flank. The fighting was intense and brutal, a testament to the desperation and determination of both sides. At the same time, another Confederate force, led by General Richard H. Anderson, was pressing hard against the Union right flank, located at Culp's Hill and Cemetery Hill. The Union soldiers, however, proved to be a formidable force. Despite suffering heavy casualties, they held their ground, repelling the Confederate onslaught with a fierce determination that was nothing short of heroic. Meanwhile, the center of the Union line, a fishhook-shaped ridge known as Cemetery Ridge, became a hotbed of conflict. The Confederates launched repeated attacks, attempting to break through the Union center, but each time they were repulsed. As the day wore on, the fighting grew more intense. The air was thick with the smoke of gunfire, the ground littered with the fallen. Yet, despite the heavy toll, the Union line held. The Confederate forces, exhausted and depleted, were forced to retreat. The second day ended with the Union line still standing, setting the stage for the climax of the battle. Thus, the second day of the Battle of Gettysburg came to a close. The Union line had been tested, but not broken. The stage was set for what would become one of the most pivotal moments in American history. The third and final day of the battle was about to unfold, and with it, a decision that would change the course of history. The morning of July 3, 1863, dawned with an eerie quietness. Both the Union and Confederate armies, bruised and battered from the past 2 days of intense fighting, prepared for what was to come. As the day progressed, the Confederate General Robert E. Lee, against the advice of his subordinates, decided to launch a full frontal assault on the center of the Union line. This audacious maneuver, known as Pickett's Charge, named after one of the leading Confederate generals, George Pickett, would turn out to be a pivotal moment in the Battle of Gettysburg. 12500 Confederate soldiers marched across an open field under the blistering July sun towards the Union line on Cemetery Ridge. The Union artillery, positioned atop the ridge, opened fire, and the Confederate lines were decimated. Despite the heavy losses, the Southern troops, driven by a sense of duty and honor, pushed on. The climax of Pickett's charge came when a small group of Confederate soldiers, ignoring the hail of bullets and cannon fire, managed to breach the Union line at a location known as the Angle. However, their success was short-lived. Union reinforcements quickly arrived, and the Confederate soldiers were forced to retreat. The aftermath of Pickett's charge was devastating. Over half of the Confederate soldiers who had participated were either killed, wounded, or captured. It was a catastrophic blow to the Confederate army from which it would never fully recover. And so, on this fateful day, the Union forces held firm. Lee's gamble had failed, and the tide of the war had turned. The Battle of Gettysburg ended with a decisive Union victory, turning the tide of the American Civil War. The echoes of the battle have faded, but the impact of those 3 days in July 1863 still resonates. As we've journeyed through the historical context and the grueling 3 days of the Battle of Gettysburg, we've encountered stories of bravery, strategy, and immense sacrifice. The stories of these men, their struggles, and their triumphs are etched into the very fabric of American history. The Battle of Gettysburg marked a significant turning point in the American Civil War. It was the first major defeat for the Confederacy after a series of victories. Their invasion of the North was halted, and the tide of the war began to turn in favor of the Union. It was here, among the rolling hills and quiet fields of Gettysburg, that the Confederacy's hope for quick victory and independence began to dwindle. But victory came at a high cost. An estimated 51,000 men were listed as casualties over the course of those 3 days, a number that speaks volumes about the ferocity and the human toll of this battle. It remains one of the deadliest battles in American history, a grim testament to the destructive power of war. Yet within this tale of warfare and loss, there are lessons to be learned and reminders to be heeded. The Battle of Gettysburg is a poignant reminder of the cost of war, the lives lost, the families shattered, and the scars etched into the soul of a nation. But it is also a testament to the price of freedom. The men who fought and died on this battlefield believed in their cause, whether it was the preservation of the Union or the pursuit of independence. Their sacrifices serve as a stark reminder of the lengths to which people will go to secure their freedom and their rights. The Battle of Gettysburg, a pivotal moment in American history, serves as a powerful reminder of the cost of war and the price of freedom.